We started sawmilling in 1947 on the banks of the Mata River in New Zealand up past Watatutu. We milled there until the native timber cut out, and then we started in Gisborne in 1956 cutting pinus. The pinus is exotic. It's grown on the hill country around our area, and the seedlings for those growth are produced by the Puha Nurseries, one of the largest seedling growers in New Zealand.
We basically would have started here probably about 9 months ago, sowing seed direct into the ground, and over that 9 months we undercut them. That's undercutting the roots to stimulate good root growth. We top them, fertilise them, and here we're at the stage of the final lift or harvesting, where they're contract lifted, bundled up and dispatched to various forest companies.
It's 150 bags.
What makes a good tree is probably getting it in the ground nice and early, but a nice even spacing when sowing, and that relates directly to having a good stem diameter here and plenty of height. Good nutrients, nice and green.
That's appealing to the young population. So what's happening right now as we look at the forest as we're standing here is these forests are now getting to the stage of maturity, and that's around about age 28. In some cases these forests have been felled at age 26, and most of this country on Mangatu is skyline or skyline hauler type country, and when you look down into the valley systems there, you can see the operation where you have the hauler either up on the top or right down in the valley system as we have in front of us, and the logs all being pulled in by ropes and controlled by a whole lot of honking of horns with signals to the guys who are actually out on the hauler line there, tying the trees up, signalling back to the hauler operator to say when to pull the trees in.
We're okay when the logs come in on the logging trucks, and we stack them in individual heaps. Just depends what length the logs are, and then the loader picks them up and puts them on the debarker,
The history behind the debarker is the debarker's only been there about 5 or 6 years. Prior to that, all our timber, waste timber, the slabs as we call them, went through an automatic firewood saw, and they were cut up, and there was no problem about sales. There was a big demand for firewood. The firewood sales dropped off, and to get rid of our slabs, the only way to do it was to make them into chips. You can't have bark in chips. It's got to be clean. So that put us to the process of somehow eliminating the bark off the logs. A debarker was the answer. Works very satisfactorily. It takes the bark off. It's a very slow process. Mainly its slowness and clumsiness is because we had to cater for both big and small logs.
Because they've got a chipper, you're not allowed bark on them, on the timber that goes through the chipper, so you've got to get rid of the bark off. And plus it makes it easy on the saws of stones and dirt and stuff that come and get that off as well. That's the main reason why we debark them. It just makes it easier to handle. Then they comes down to the breaking down saw, and from there they just cut it up.
I head the breaking down, which is cutting the logs up into manageable pieces for the next man to cut usable timber out of. Firstly, we roll a log on depending on the size. You might use a winch or might just use a hand hook, and we'll take a slab off it. He'll get some timber out of that, and then we'll turn it over, and then we'll take another slab off to get a straight edge, and then we'll line it up with the saw from there. And depending on what sizes we're cutting, 6x2s, 12x2s, we'll cut what we can out of the log. If that's just about it, really, just sending it all down to the next man, you're breaking the log into manageable pieces for the next man to handle. Otherwise, if you send it down too big, he's going to break his back down there. Our main tool is our bar, which we jimmy the log across and back and forwards to our marks, because on a carriage we have marks for different sizes from the saw. So to get it there, we find, well, this is an old way of doing things. You use your bar to jimmy it over, and it's all just a sense of balance. A lot of people get up and have a go at it, and they all thumbs, and they don't know how we do it. But it's quite easy when you master it. We've got little hooks we use to pull the flitches down. And other than that, our other tool is a wooden chock, just simply to hold the log steady. The log is actually pulled through the saw, and I'm on a lever which is driving it, I suppose you're driving a train or something, forward and back and neutral. And I've got a man who starts and stops the saw. And yeah, it's just pulled on railway tracks. It's just pulled through the saw, and the log goes through, and you come back. These big saws, a lot of people come in here and have never used a saw in their life, and it's for us to get that fear away and to make them feel safe, and to explain to them what you're doing, and how to do it. And it takes, some people pick it up, some don't know. And we've actually gone through a few guys down this end. And I'll be honest, when I first started, I shit my pants. Just about, verbally. Because we had a really big log, and behind me there's this beam there which is holding us, and everything sort of moves a little bit, but it's stable and solid as, but it felt like you were on a boat. But afterwards, it's like getting your sea legs, I suppose.
Prior to us having that flitch skid alive, all it was previously to that was 2 blue gum poles about 6 inches through, and to make them slippery we used to grease them with mutton fat and man-powered them down. Those days are over, and we now have a mechanised conveyor bringing it down to the breast bench.
I'm called a saw doctor by trade. My job is to make sure all the saws are cutting correctly and all in a straight line. It's basically saw maintenance. What we did, we rolled the big saw into the saw shop. That part of the saw shop is where we do all our hammering and leveling, tensioning. And with that demonstration on that big saw there, the first thing we did, we checked the dish, make sure that the dish was just right. And the next thing was I laid it flat on the bench, and with the long straight edge I used check the tension overall, and then I used the smaller straight edge to check the tension on half of the saw, and found some what they call tight spots. So I had to hammer those tight spots out to make the body more malleable. Whereas, like I explained before, you've got to carry tension in your saws because of the speed of it's doing about 600 revs and about 10,000 surface feet on the outside. And when the saw starts cutting, it heats up at the rim and it starts to expand, so you need that extra. The saw is actually like that before it cuts, and as soon as it starts spinning, it actually straightens up. So that's the idea of tension. When I first started doing it, doing a circular saw like that, hammering, it took me about a week to try and hammer it up, because not knowing much about steel in those days, they left you to it, and they just left you there, and then you had to work it out yourself. That was the old saw doctors in those days. Now, it only takes me less than half an hour to hammer a saw. I can give a saw a shake, and I know exactly what to do with it. That's testing your tension in the body of the saw. And if it doesn't, you give it a little shake like that, and the saw should wobble like that. It should give you a certain amount of wobble. But if it doesn't, if it ends up like that, well, it's too tight. You've got to put more tension into its body to relax the body a bit more. It's like a rugby player playing rugby. He's got to do some stretches first. You stretch the muscles. That's exactly the same as what the body of a saw is. You've got to treat the saw like a person. Over the years, you get to know your saws, which are the best ones and which are the ones that starts moaning all the time and things like that. Then I put it onto the grinder to make sure that the face of the saw was sharp and they had the right angles on it. The angle is about 30 degrees, hook angle, what they call a hook. That's underneath the teeth. And plenty of clearance in the throat. Like I said, if the teeth are not right and your throats are too small, it starts blocking up, and the saw will start heating up again and diving all over the place. So, like I said, that saw's got a body, it's got an eye, it's got a tooth, it's got a throat. And they all work in together, the body, eye, throat, and teeth. When she starts biting, it's got to be able to swallow that sawdust and then discharge it down the bottom. And the teeth are made in such a way that the throat actually throws out and it hits the bottom of the cut.
My job description is a benchman. I've been around here for over 13 years. I've worked here and totally enjoy it. In the mornings I just oil the bench up. Used a lot of waste oil and stuff like that to oil the bench up, and grease it up and check the guides. Guides are what we call they vary. They could have a leather strap. They could have a piece of wood or something. They are there to stop the saw from wandering in the cut. So I check those and that and basically see if everything's running okay, and then away we go. And I'll just put it on the trolley and select the sizes and just cut things that we call fletchers, and they're graded into different grades of timber, and it comes down to me, and I just have got an order to do, and I just cut it on the bench over there, and the fence is that gadget over there that when I select the size, it moves either back or forwards. So, yeah. Timber just drops into a dip, which is timber stain off it, so it won't go all black and things like that. Because timber, when you leave it left out in the sun and stuff or whatever, it just turns black.
I'm the goosey. They call me the goosey. And I practically cover all the jobs around the mill whenever I'm needed. And then when it comes over my way, over the dipper, I look at it, sort of grade it, quick grade, and then cut the knots, flush at the end. If there's any knots, I'll cut them out, and then I just, on the conveyor there, just let it roll past me, and then I just stack it up here.
The smallest cut we do here is probably 50 by 25, so anything under that, or we just throw it out into the waste, which goes up to the chipper, or if we're not using the chipper, it goes to the firewood saw.
Well, the sawdust is very, very important in sawmills. They are the heart of the sawmill. If your saws are not performing, the mill won't perform. Had a saw there with a couple of broken teeth on, and I was replacing the stellite tips. Firstly, we got rid of bent off the old teeth, and put in new seats into the saw. Put the brazing paste into the seats, and placed the stellite on top of it, and heat it up to a dull red. Stellite. It's originally we started with tungsten carbide, and with the stellite it's cheaper for maintenance. You can just use ordinary grinding wheels to sharpen the blades. Yeah, and I lined the teeth up, grind the face of the teeth. The next stage was to grind the backs of the teeth, and then the last stage is the side grind, 2 degrees angle on the sides of the teeth.
prior to us putting that hopper up there, we had a chain going 200 yards out underneath where we're standing, out to the back of the yard with cleats on it, and the sawdust was pulled out there, and that operated for about 2 or 3 years. People came and helped themselves to the sawdust, and the surplus was spread out over this area where we are, where these logs are, which was a swamp. This was all built up with sawdust, but the sawdust became too much of a problem, so a carpenter I had working for me, Colin Moore, and I designed and built that sawdust hopper. When we designed and built it and erected it, the mill chap thought it was a hell of a joke. They reckoned it wouldn't work. Well, we proved them wrong. It worked. We had to make a few innovations, but it's working now, and you saw it just working. It works like that day after day. The only problem we had is that we built it on unstable ground, and last year I had to put in 4 big X power poles and brace it up. And if you have a close look at the side of it, you'll see that it has been braced. If I hadn't put that bracing in last year, it would have fallen on its nose. That load that he's just loading is going to people for bedding down bobby calves. It's used for all sorts of purposes. So you mix sawdust, sandy soil and blood and bone, you've got a good garden. You mix clay, sawdust and lime, and you've got a good garden.
Been here for 4 years now. It's not too bad. Started off in the mill and made my way out here. Yeah, it's quite good out here though, in the summertime and that. All you do is just, a packet comes from the mill and you stand here and grade for a packet that's come from the mill and go through each board, put a grade mark on it and just sort the best timber out and keep all the bad stuff and the good stuff together. You've basically got probably about 10 grades to do. You've got all your inch stuff and your 2-inch stuff. So we're cutting 2-inch, we're doing number 1, number 2 in box, plus clears. So got a bit to go through there and you've got to memorise all the different stuff. So yeah.
I'm the timber machinist. I make the knives, grind the knives, set up the planers to do the creasing of the timber. We've just taken a set of knives off one of our planers to a blunt. We've done a fair bit of work, a couple of 1,000 metres work. We've just cleaned the knives just so that the template, when you put a template on, they fit on, they sit on the bed nice and neatly, and when you're grinding them, they get blunt. They put you get a round edge on them, like any other knife basically, and you just grind them to a sharp edge again. You grind them both so that they're balanced. They have to be the same weight and the same grind, and after we've done that, we hone them and put them back on the planer. The copy grinder, that does all your profile work, like your profile work is anything that's not basically square. We're ready to set up again for another run. We've ground the knives, put the knives back, we'll put some other knives on later on. That's an Armstrong plunge grinder. That's an American made grinder. It's pretty old. It's probably be in the 1950s, I suppose. We picked that up in Carter Holt's yard. We were lucky enough to pick it up. And there is scarce as hen's teeth. And another sort of to see it line over here. Where did you get that from? You know, they're really amazing. Yeah. And it's so simple, that machine, they're so simple. And it's so robust that it'll probably last me out my lifetime till I retire. Anyway.
The bandsaw is probably not quite so complex. The operator on there has still got to make sure he keeps the blade clean and that it's running straight and that the sizes of the timbers are right and everything else. So it's probably not as complex as the machinist, but it still needs a certain amount of knowledge of what you're doing. Been brought up in sawmilling with Dad all our lives, and I've worked here now for 27 years, I suppose, so it's just grown on us and the whole family seems to be involved. That's bandsawing some dry 100 by 50 for ripping it into two pieces into two 100 by 25s for a line of decking, and we do it out of the 100 by 50 because it's a better grade of timber and they want a premium grade decking, which is the top grade decking we can get. Needs to be dry. Where it was, the stack we were taking it off had been drying for about 3 months, and the timber needs to be dry to dress it properly and then to treat it. As you walk around the place, there's probably 6 or 8 different operations going on at one time, as in the mill and the person grading, the filleters, whether they're making pellets, they're cutting the stuff in the box factory, and the machinists, and then just the general orders that we do for the clients, and somebody's just got to make sure that everything's going as it should be. I don't think it's difficult. I think there's about 15 jokers working here, and there's 6 or 8 of them that are probably quite well experienced and know what they're doing, so it makes it a lot easier for what we've got to do. And it's no different to anything, I suppose. Once you've been doing it for a few years, it sort of get to know how to take the shortcuts and whatever. I think we've got a good client base. When we diversified 10 or 12 years ago into the horticulture industry, that helped us out, and now that we've got a good rapport, I suppose, with carters and selling timber wholesale to them and all the horticultural stuff that we do as well, it balances itself out, and it seems to work quite well. Those are the cores from the Duke-Inisho's plant, which is all that's left of a log. They bring them into us, and we have to put a flat on the top and the bottom of them to make them stop them rolling so they can use them for bearers, and half of them go to Japan as they are, and the other half they use locally for bearers in the LVL plant at JNL.
In the box factory, they are cutting pieces to length. They cut mainly 100 by 50. It's box grade, and they cut it to the best utilization. The lengths vary from 0.9 of a metre to 1.5, and each length has a different use. Some go into pallets, some go into bins, some go into boxes. That timber that you see there is stacked for drying. It's air dried. We would be one of the few places that air dry timber. It takes time, so you've got a lot of capital tied up there. For every 25 mil of thickness, it takes a month to dry. So if you've got 25 mil, that's a month. 50 mil is 2 months. And that's stacked there until it's ready for cutting up for horticulture, the second grade, or processing and treating for the commercial grade.
I'm basically in charge of all the administration for the company. Sole person in the office. I started in 1967, which was the year that the company of Nolan Richardson Limited was actually started by Dad.
We produce out of the better of our logs commercial selling building timber. Out of the secondary grade and the box grade, 99% goes to horticulture. It's manufactured into pallets, bins, boxes, and 90% of that would be exported. It goes to various markets. Probably the best market would be Japan, and the Japan market would take oranges on pallets, squash in the bins. They all go on pallets. How's that? She's not going to play. She's too excited about the rabbits.